How's it going, everyone? We're here week 9 at the Springfield VFW. I'm here with Coach Franklin of the Springfield Tigers. Coach, thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. First, before we get into it, two great guys on before that. Give you a chance to talk about them.
Uh, yeah, it's two great players for us, and also great kids, great students, great student athletes. Evan Miracle, I've got to know him now 2 years. Just a kid that always has that relentless effort that you're looking for as a football player, and just as a person, he's fun to be around. Really enjoy him in class. Like I say, he shouted out my carpentry class, so I'm glad that he enjoys that. I enjoy that class. I love that class. So, getting to see him in the classroom setting this year is pretty cool. Tristan, hope that I get him next year in my carpentry. But Tristan, I know him for 2 years now, and just a great kid as well. Always willing to do whatever the team needs.
Absolutely, two great guys. And shout out for your carpentry class. Hopefully,
Yes,
everyone gets
always.
to take that.
Always trying to recruit.
Yes, and you're the offensive coordinator for the Springfield Tigers, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get into week 8 win against Mineral Ridge, 19-7 win. What's your first thoughts on that, Coach?
It was one of those games where it took us a while to get going, and once we kind of figured things out, because they lined up a couple different ways all season. So once we got something consistent, we could start hitting them in some areas that were a little weaker, and we had some explosive plays. We already mentioned, Marco, we call him the Falcon. He had a 77-yard touchdown run. Then we hit our Eagle, which was Eli. He busted one for 30. And then, Bear, we let him throw it around a little bit, hit Weimer for a nice smash, and got a touchdown there. So, we were very efficient. We were able to pass a little bit because they were giving us options. So it was a nice balanced game for us.
Yeah, it was a good game. You guys got the win. Defensively, the team looked great again. On the offensive side, I feel like the offense keeps getting better week in and week out. You guys are definitely coming together better as a unit. Just talk us through what have you seen the offense improving on as the year's gone on?
Well, you see from week 1 till week 7, week 8 that we just keep getting better. And what's helping us getting better is we're able to use more players, and more players are having an impact instead of just one kid. We have 3 or 4 running backs are making plays, multiple receivers. Our O-line, they just keep getting better. Like I think Evan even said, we had some young guys starting up there that were freshmen and sophomores, and they just keep getting better. They're first-year starters. So just the team coming together and gelling and getting on the same page with everything has been huge for us. And you see that progress from week 1 to week 8.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, getting some different guys in the mix, that helps out. It's a long season, and you guys are a smaller school, so with that, you guys have to play some guys on both sides of the ball. What's that like on the offensive side, balancing that when those guys are taking snaps on defense too?
Yeah, it's mostly our linemen. They're the ones that have to go both ways a lot, but we do have some guys that we can get them a break on offense or defense if needed. But, for me, having a quarterback who doesn't have to play a lot of defense is great because I know I can talk to him. He's always fresh. Our running back, Coldwell, he doesn't play, a ton of defense either. So we have those guys. Matt Weimer, he's usually pretty fresh. But, the other guys got to go both ways. They're the warriors. Like, Nate Heppen, I know he's back there. He barely comes off the field. So we have, Marco, he doesn't come off the field. So we have a lot of guys that, they don't get a break. Speaking of like Evan, he gets to come off if we go – a certain grouping.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Dom's back there chirping, but Dom doesn't get to come back off the field much either. So, yeah, we do have some of those guys that have to go both ways. And, I think they would rather do that than be sitting on the sideline. So, we appreciate those guys' effort for us.
Yeah, I'm sure the kids love being out there and getting to play, but from the coaching, like you said, must drive you nuts sometimes, though, not getting to have that chance to meet with the guys or do it in between special teams or a quick timeout.
Yeah.
But and just the challenge of it being – it's week 9 coming up, and you just have everyone getting banged up extra. But one thing that has been really good this year, and it's always good with Springfield, is the run game. Talk us through with Alex. Alex doing a great job as the lead back, and just talk us through that run game a little bit.
Yeah, Springfield, we run 16 and 17, 12 and 13. That's our bread and butter. So us being able to do that now multiple ways is really what's helping us out and open us up with, like I already mentioned, Marco and Eli getting some carries, and Mike Wojcinski's starting to come around now. So just having more guys doing the same thing, makes us a little more dimensional instead of just handing it off to one guy all the time, and that's really helped us. And you mentioned earlier, now we can add the QB running there. Bears running the ball well for us, so we have many options now instead of just one guy.
Yeah, and having such a strong run game, how does that really help set you guys up with with the offense when you guys want to be able to take a shot down the field or have to?
Well, what helps us out is, if we can run the ball well, we stay on schedule, and then we start running it well. The secondary gets nosy, and that's when we use our play action. We go up top to either Matt, Steve, any of our wide outs. So we have those options. Once we see, teams are starting to key our run game and they're not really respecting our pass, that's when we can hit those guys.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's so important that you guys get that run game established early. What do you guys do to try to make sure that tone set early and aggressively?
Like Evan even said, we're a physical football team. So those guys, they want to run the ball. Our offensive linemen, there's been times when, at practice when I call a pass play in a red zone, they're kind of upset with me because they want to run the football. So, we run the football, and, if we're on schedule, if it's 3rd and 5, to us, we're still on schedule, especially if we have 4th down. So being able to run the ball effectively, it makes our life a lot easier.
Yeah, and something I've talked with Coach Slowpak a couple times about is with the offense is he always says don't always look at the points to see how well the offense did, because something that you guys do is you really take each possession and try to make the most out of it, whether it's getting the ball past the 50 or taking 6 minutes off the clock or just eating time. Even if you can't score, that's some metrics you guys look at. So talk us through that emphasis that you have to try to really, because you guys do try to eat a lot of time off on those offensive possessions.
Usually we average probably, which is kind of a high number, like high 50s, low 60 plays a game on offense, and that's a ton of plays. So we're able to kind of control the game, and even if we don't end up in a score, at least we're flipping the field. We don't have to send a punt team out there. We're flipping the field. We're taking time off the clock. So, like last week as an example, I think we only ran about 47 plays. So that's low for us, but we had those big explosive plays that kind of got us, broke away late in the 3rd quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about McDonald now, moving on. They're a team 8-0, 5-0. Talking players earlier, they know the importance of this game. If you win it, you at least get a share of the title. Right. But they're a high-powered offense. So how do you have your team ready to go this week to put up the points if they need to, or like you said, just keep the ball out of their hands?
I think the thing for us is we've been able to keep the ball out of team's hands. So just keep doing what we're doing. We don't need to change anything. We'll run our game. We'll run the football, and when the passes present themselves, we'll hit them. I think keep a great offense off the field is going to be good for us. So having a great offense is also going to help out our defense, give those guys a break and things like that. But I'm not worried about our defense. They played lights out all season. I think you mentioned they haven't given up more than 7 points in the league right now. So we're comfortable with those guys. And offensively, we just have to do our job, keep the ball moving, stay on schedule, and, we get down to red zone, make sure we punch it in and make it count.
Yeah, and if you guys win this week, you get at least a share of the title, and you have a game against Lowville next week where you control your own destiny to win it outright. What would that what would that mean to you to be able to clinch the league this year with a win?
It'd be great just, for the kids. They work hard. I mean, when I first got here last year, these kids work hard all summer. They show up June, July. They don't miss. And then doubles, our doubles aren't easy. We're there a long time, and they don't miss. And they don't complain. They're there for everything. And, just their hard work that they put in every day, and it shows on the field. And they deserve that because their hard work should pay off for them as long as we do what we're supposed to do.
Absolutely. And you said this is your 2nd year with the Tigers. What's it been like getting your first full year under your belt, coming back for your 2nd, and getting a chance to start to make connections with the players out there?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, last year, being a new guy, and I will say these guys, they make it easy to make connections with them. They're a great group of kids. I remember my first day, it was like no big deal. They just accepted me right there. So, that makes it easy as a coach. Then you start building those individual relationships with all the kids, and then you see them in class more, you have them in school, and you get to know a little bit more about them, and it's been great for me.
Yeah, and what are some things what are something that you think the offense needs to improve on, or that you like to work on at practice through the rest of the year?
Our biggest thing sometimes are communication. Making sure we don't have a false start. When we get penalties and false starts and put ourselves behind the sticks, we're kind of in trouble. I had that little bit of problem with that against Western Reserve, and then once we got that cleaned up, we were fine. So that's our biggest thing. Sometimes just our focus and making sure we're sticking to our rules or blocking schemes. And, other than that, I mean, that's the biggest thing we got to work on, making sure we're all on the same page. And, that comes down to me, signaling and communicating with the quarterback, him getting at the offense. And I thought we've done a great job of that the last 2 weeks especially.
Yeah, and I think you guys have done a good job cleaning up as the season's gone on. And I was talking with Evan and Tristan, That's something that you see as teams are starting to keep playing for stuff down the stretch. That's something that they need, that they really focus on cleaning
Yeah.
up. That's what the teams that are going to continue playing. That's how they get there, by not making those mistakes. And but it's a big week against McDonald. A week you really can't afford many mistakes. What are your three keys to victory for this week?
Our biggest thing, I think, is we're going to be the more physical football team. So it starts there. That's both sides of the ball. That's special teams. Being physical, more physical than what they are. A lot of times we get compliments after a game of, how hard our team hits. And that's a huge compliment as a coach, and you tell that to your players, and it's starting to show because we get that compliment a lot. So I think the more physical team, like Tristan and Evan both mentioned, us being focused, locked in, and understand things are going to happen, and just have that next play mentality. And just for us offensively, like I said before, staying on schedule, staying ahead of the sticks, and we'll be victorious if we can do that.
Absolutely, Coach. Best of luck this week, and best of luck rest of the season. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming on.